Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish.
So today we're going to be talking about focus. We're going to, circle the wagons right back around and still talk about focus. Yesterday we talked about focus, and we started on Monday talking about focus, and we made that whole thing. We had started with an analogy or an acronym that's follow one course until success. Now, I didn't make this up, but pretty good stuff, right? Follow one course until success. And I like this so much. You know why I like this? Because it gives us an exact instruction of what to do. One course. It's the power of one. We talked about that yesterday. And how critical, how important is that? It's everything, because then we can start to get things done. But one of the things that we have, we end up in this whole idea of, well, it's just really hard for me to get my focus. Well, I'm on ADD and I really struggle with focus, and on and on and on it goes. And I'm going to say right now to you, anyone who says that is setting themselves up with an excuse and a rationale not to have to focus. And I'm not saying that ADD does not exist. I am ADD myself. Yes, ma'am. I have been diagnosed as ADD. Hey, Mary, good to see you. Doris, I'm glad you're here. Yes, I understand what ADD is, but it doesn't mean that that's your destination. That doesn't mean like, well, I get to bow out of this, and that means that I don't have to look at it. It just means you're going to have a little bit of a harder struggle, if you will, or it's going to take a little bit longer, or it's going to be a little bit more effort. Because I'm going to tell you this right now, and pinkies up. If I were to say to you, you have to focus on X, Y, and Z, and you said, no way, I can't because blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, change it. You have to focus on X, Y, and Z, and I will give you $1 million at the end of the year if you do it. Pinkies up if you could do it. Pinkies up. I know you could. Because we just don't concentrate enough on the reward. We don't focus enough, if you will, on the reward, what we're going to get out of it. When where our focus goes, our energy goes, you know that. It's also what we focus on expands, right? You know that. And the thing is that if we make a decision for ourselves, by the way, it's always for ourselves. It's for ourselves. And we really put everything that we have into it. And I'm talking about getting energized about it. I'm talking about emoting over it. Because we emote over other stuff, don't we? Have you noticed how we do that? Look at all those pinkies going up. Girls, I know, right? $1 million. Look at them all going up. But we do that. We do it all the time. Because focus, my friends, is a decision. Just like all of the other choices that we have in our lives. It is a decision. Even when it's hard, it's still a decision. And focus can be ascertained out of anything if we make a decision that it can. Because that's how things work. And when we're working with our minds and understand how they work, when our thoughts suddenly become captive and we are the ones in charge of our thoughts and we are the ones in charge of what it is that we're going to do next, things start to fall into place. So, and I'm going to say, even if we're faced with ADD, ADHD, and I was diagnosed with this with a doctor, I said, I'm having a hard time and just can't focus. And I'm all over the place and I'm here and there. And he goes, oh yeah, classic ADD. And, asked me a few questions and asked me, do I want a, prescription? No. Now, you know what that tells me? Learn new skills. We need to learn new skills to accommodate the things that we all had, the obstacles, the disabilities, the whatever, to do it. I had a woman one time who She was saying, oh, I can't get fit. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't do anything. I can't get to a pool where they have all this stuff. And I said, okay, YouTube for wheelchair exercises, can you do upper body? What can you do? All of this. And you know what? It completely changed her life. Using YouTube as a gym, using a new mindset, a new framework. Just because her legs weren't working doesn't mean her arms weren't. When we look at that, that becomes our focus. And when we start to focus on that, that becomes the output of what we do. One of the things that we have in on the Peloton bike, they have the resistance, and then they have the resistance, they have the cadence on there, and then you get your output to see what your output is. Well, your output is met with both of those things, because you have to have a cadence. In other words, you have to have the action, you have to have the keep goingness. You also have to have some resistance, because resistance is what we push against. And resistance is also, as we push against it, it helps to create momentum. If that's how a bike works, well, that's how we work too. That's how we work. So when we understand that where our focus goes, that's where our attention goes. So what do I have to say about that? Pay attention, right? Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Hi, Amy. Don't you think that's important? Of course you do. You think that's important. Listen, $1 million is on the line. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. If this were a true thing, and I was like, $1 million, and this was going to happen, I am telling you, you would turn your house upside down to make sure your environment was 100% completely supporting the thing that you were shooting for. I promise you, you would. I promise you that you would change up your friends, you would change up your food, you would change everything up if all of this was relying on the fact that you were going to get paid out $1 million for following through on something just by focusing. You would. We would completely change everything when there's suddenly this huge tangible reward attached to what could be. And can you imagine also how that's going to work? Can you imagine how you'd feel about that? You'd be so excited about it. You'd be over the moon about it. You'd be blocking everything else out, and you'd be just absolutely focused. There's $1 million at stake. Well, I'm going to say to you right now, your life is at stake. Your vibrancy is at stake. I can't put a dollar sign on that. I can't. Can you? Your purpose, your reason for being here, that's at stake. All of it's at stake. Patsy's yelling, show me the money. I know, right? But that's the truth. That's the truth of who we are. So we have to follow one course until success. That's where the payoff is, the real payoff. So let's remember that. And then I look at this like we're planting a garden. We could use a garden for so many metaphors, right? But this is the truth. You're planting a focus garden because it's all based upon what you love. So in other words, if you are planting in your garden, if you decide, I want the most beautiful flower garden in the whole entire universe, I want these colors, this, that, and the other thing, and you absolutely hated daisies, would you plant daisies in your garden? Would you? You would not. But this is so much the focus of what we do. We plant stuff in our garden all the time because we focus on the wrong things. We need to focus on the things we want to germinate and bloom in our lives. Fully bloom. Like how I snuck that one in? Of course you do. So what do you want to plant? Do you want a victory garden or do you want a victimhood garden? What kind of garden do you want? I don't know about you, but I'm done with victimhood. That's just a time sucker. It just takes away from the vibrancy in my life. It just doesn't do a darn thing for me. Does it do anything for you? Anyone? Anyone say, or you're going to raise your hand and say, you know what? Being a victim's been a lot of fun in my life. And I'm so glad that's where my focus has been because it's given me so much reward. It's created vibrancy. Not said no woman ever. No. You can do that if you want. It's the haves and the have-nots. You've heard that one before. I want you to be a have. You can have anything that you want as long as you're willing to do it, as long as you're willing to get into the focus of doing it. You can have anything you want. But don't say something like, well, I can't be a male, NBA player. Well, duh. Either can I. Nobody can. But you could be an excellent basketball player if you were to put all of your time and energy into it. You could probably play in a league. You could probably be a star if you wanted to put your focus on that, depending on where you are in your life. We all have our limitations. We all live in these bodysuits at this time and for whatever. We all have that. But that doesn't mean that you cannot have excellence in your life no matter what it is that you choose. It all depends on your focus, because where your focus goes, your energy goes. And where your energy goes, that's where you're going to be spending your time. That's where you're going to be spending your thought life and your energy and all the things. All the things. Amber says, I was reading that when we allow our brains to go squirrel every 5 minutes and get distracted, we're strengthening those neural connections. Absolutely. Absolutely. When we stay connected to what it is that we're doing and finish the course of what we're doing, what happens? It gets easier. I remember in 2019, when I started doing this show on a daily basis, it was hard. It was hard for me. And I was like, what am I going to talk about? Who wants to listen to me? What's going to happen here? It got easier and easier and easier. I listened. I got feedback. Everything, all of the things that I let in helped me to focus so that my output was a whole lot easier. I connected in my brain what was what. Things became easier. Same with my working out, I can lift heavier weights. I can do different things. And you know what? My body looks different and better. But you know what's even better? It's picking up a 15-pound dog. He weighs 15 pounds now, because he's done walking, and taking him the last quarter of a mile and then taking him up the 70, 80 steps that we have to our house all the way uphill and not be out of breath. That comes from a focus on fitness. And it gives me these little victories along the way. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. We want to make the right neural connections in our head, and it makes all the difference on what it is that we're doing. We don't want to be like squirrels. And remember, squirrels, you remember we talked about squirrels and their nuts? I'm talking about the nuts that they bury. But squirrels bury nuts, and 40% of them they can't find, or more than that, or they can only find 40%. I can't remember what it was, but it was ridiculous. They bury nuts all through the summer. They bury their little acorns everywhere, and they don't even find half of them. More than half. But that's us. We can be like that, or we can be very intentional about it. Putting a seed down, planting a seed, germinating it. We can do that, helping it germinate. So those are goals. When we have a focus garden, our goals are right in there with the focus. They're right in there. They're part of that garden. And seeds, just like everything else, need the time, the patience to germinate so that they can be fully bloomed. And there's stuff that happens in the invisible. This is the invisible work. We see preparation. Do we see that? No, we don't. I haven't seen your prep unless you're going to give me a picture and show me the prep work that you're doing for your sprint. I don't know what you're doing. I don't see you at the grocery store. I don't see you chopping up your onions and, making your bags and making your bone broth unless you put the picture out there. But that's part of what you're doing to create the plan that's laid out for you so that you can have success. And here we are, day 4 in the sprint. How much success are you having? How focused are you on germinating this little seed so that you can have victory as opposed to victimhood? It's up to you. But this is how we win $1 million. It really is. So what do we need to do? What do we need to do to plant a focus garden? Let's start with that. I've got 5 things. Number 1, prepare the soil and get it ready. You know that. Prepare the soil and get it ready. So if we're going to get that soil ready, then we're going to make sure that it has the right amount of nutrients in it, right? We're going to make sure that it's all tilled up. We're going to make sure that all the weeds and everything are pointed out, and we've got just beautiful soil that we can plant the seed and know that it's going to get taken care of because it's got a good foundation. This is why I always say to you, read the plan. You might have 18 pages, but if you read it, you're going to understand it. You will have tilled that soil, right? That's what it is. Number 2 is place the seed in the garden and water it, focus on the beauty that you will see. You will see. In other words, when we plant gardens, we don't get instantaneous results. We never do. We planted gardens. We didn't microwave a burrito. It's not instant. It is a garden. It takes and requires time and nurture in order to even start to germinate. And once it starts to germinate, what happens? As it starts to germinate, that little, you can't even tell what it is, but you see a little green something, and it's exciting. And every day that little green something comes. Then pretty soon there's a bloom. There's a bloom. We still water, we go through, we weed. We are very careful. We guard this beautiful flower. Guard it. It's not flowered yet. It hasn't even budded yet. But we guard it. We take out the weeds because we don't want our dreams choked out. That's number 4. We weed. We don't want our dreams choked out by all of the negative thoughts and all of everything. We don't. We want our dreams nurtured. We do that by taking the weeds out. Number 5, we focus on creating more of the same. Yeah. To make a beautiful garden, then that's going to require daily attention. Daily attention. Have you noticed anybody here who's done this? I know you have. Anybody here who's grown a garden, have you seen it? Have you noticed what happens? That as you plant that beautiful garden and it germinates and then the green comes up and it just keeps going and now you've got a bud and you just watch it and you're careful and you're making sure everything around it is just careful and taken care of, that it blooms. And as it blooms, it gets, it's pretty as it in a bud, but it's more and more beautiful as it fully blooms. Fully bloomed. A fully bloomed you. This is what happens when your focus is correctly put on yourself, on your life, on your goals, on the vibrancy that you want, instead of all the other garbage. Because, we all have the garbage. We all have the garbage. One of my favorite things, in my workout thing is like, put your shoulders down, drop your baggage. I love that. Or your shoulders aren't earrings, drop your shoulders. The reason that they're saying that, get yourself in alignment. And I say to you, get yourself in alignment. Drop the baggage. Drop the negativity. Drop the thinking that no longer serves. Yeah, it's going to take a minute for you to do it. Yes, it is work, but every single day it gets better. Do you want to be like these squirrels that just bury a bunch of seeds all over the place, nuts and can't even find them? Or do you want to be like that rose that's blooming in your garden? Not just a little bud, but a fully bloomed, glorious rose. I think that's what you want to be. So what's it going to require? Getting your hands dirty. If you're a gardener, you get your hands dirty. Yeah, so what if you wear gloves or whatever? But the point is this: if you do this work, you get this reward. And it starts with focus, because your focus is what contains the energy so that you can get to this place of creating a victory garden. A victory garden. Because we've all had enough of victimhood gardens. It's time for us to raise the sail and to start to be the rising tide. That's the thing that lifts all the boats. Focus. It's a great thing. That's what I got for you today. I love focus. I think it's such a great word. And I know Joanne and who else said that they had that as their, Jocelyn, I think, said that was her word of the year. I can't remember. I know. My focus went. I believe in you. Peace be with you. See you later. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.